Good morning. It's about 1 a.m., April 16th. Like I always say, why do you need glasses when you have a bottle? What prompted this video was that about 45 minutes ago, there's a moth loose in the house. I was talking to some retarded Yankees. Actually, some of them, they know I'm not a liar. But this is about a phenomenal event in my life. I'll try to look at the camera when I can, but I'm just going to look at me right here. And yeah, I know the LEDs are causing, I can see the little wavy lines in the 1080p. Anyway, look, if most of you never travel, you never really get around, you don't think much, you're not really perspicacious. You don't really observe anything other than what you want to buy or what you want to hump or whatever. You just not really, you don't have that big picture thing like I do. And for me, it's easy because I'm big. And that's what this story is largely about. As my regular subscribers know, I'm a native Texan, but I grew up in San Francisco, the San Francisco Peninsula. Now, in 1998, even though I spent like the winters of 90-91, 91, 92, no, 90-91, 90-91, 91, 92, in Santa Barbara, I still hadn't gone back to my old stomping grounds up in San Francisco, and I didn't know what a hellhole it was. Just a complete shithole, just bizarro, men raping men at knife point in midday in the streets and stuff like that. 1,500 deaths a year from either exposure or from drug overdose, etc. It was just a Babylon. It was the harlot of nations had arisen. There were guys standing on the street corners, they were much like with the signs saying exactly what I'm saying right now. I'm sorry, try to get that red light a little closer. Let's put a little rose in them cheeks. Anyway, and I went to California that year because my friends in the Bay Area told me there's no parking in or near San Francisco. Actually, once I got there, I found out that they were wrong. There was a place out by Mission Rock, I don't know who owned it, it may have been owned by the city, where thousands of people who couldn't afford parking, because a parking spot in San Francisco is many thousands of dollars. You have to be an executive in San Francisco, or it's a billionaire town. But anyway, and when you go back on Amtrak, that's the worst of all the Amtrak trips. Anyway, I'll get there. So, I went there primarily to educate because I knew that San Francisco State, etc., and others, there were people in town that were up on cannabinoid science, and I was there to try to help that dumbass black mayor, Willie Brown, and others to move it up from just, and actually, the minute I arrived, I witnessed the biggest federal raid ever. That's a whole nother story. What I want to talk to you about now is the Gay Pride Parade and the CLONES. I'm going to tell the story of that raid of June something, early like June 1st, 2nd, 3rd. I'll have to. Anyway, I'll get on with it because I've only got 15 minutes. Otherwise, YouTube stretches out that last few seconds into 20 hours, where I can otherwise do a quick upload on nights like this. Wednesday night, come on, real good. So I'd arrived, and even actually very close to the city center, there was a public storage, which was started in Austin, Texas, where I kept a lot of my critical gear, my laptops, my laptop typewriter, etc., my camera, and I used a half-inch VHS camera at that time to be sure, this is in the days before we had really good, reliable, inexpensive digital cameras. And on the day of the Gay Pride Parade, number one, I already knew that the Diesel Dykes had already held their. This was the year that I discovered that, oh gosh, as I counted them up, I'm sorry, there's a moth going to come in and out of this, that there were 13, if you count heterosexuals, there were at least 13 to 14 different genders, that all of them, the heterosexuals would get along, would go along with anybody, but the other 13 genders could not possibly get along. I'm going to have to kill that little motherfucker right now. You're dead, Mothman. So, some bitch. Anyway, I'd already know that before it was June 20th is typical. It was actually the coldest, cloudiest summer on record in San Francisco. I mean, it was chilly. I had on a leather jacket every day. Fine silk shirts, and trannies couldn't keep their hands off me. So this is actually the last time I was actually tolerant towards deviance. So, and I was having to use hair product because it was so windy. I was actually wearing like a little ponytail and back and stuff like that, because otherwise, and I was wearing a kepi, otherwise my hair would be all over the place. Anyway, I already knew that something was wrong. I came out with my camera bag. I'm going to tell this story, part of the story first, because I know I've got 8 more minutes to go, plus. I got up to the police barriers and stuff like that, and I had my camera bag, and all of a sudden, like 2 lesbian couples with adopted children pulled up to the left of me. And so I was already, I'm a smoker, started to smoke a cigarette, and it wasn't law for another 10 years in San Francisco or more that they restricted smoking to your private vehicle or your personally owned car, your own personally owned house or whatever, or some rental in which the landlord agreed to. Actually, it wasn't that much longer. It was like 2002 they passed the no smoking in public law. So anyway, the minute I got up, I got at the end of the parade where they were already had destroyed every bathroom from the start to the finish. Billions of dollars of damage in San Francisco. I don't lie, I just stopped to recall. Now I was standing there at the police barriers, which people constantly would lift up and break through and shit like that and get out. And oh yeah. And instead of the Gay Men's Chorus, which was celebrating their 20th anniversary, they started in Castro, the Diesel Dykes, and there was one Diesel Dyke that had a guy driving her. She was a tall, blonde, really busty woman, but she had one tit removed, either for just pure fun or maybe breast cancer. And all these lesbians brought these children. All the lesbians and queer couples brought their children to watch this freak show. And so I started to fire up a cigarette, and the 2 lesbian couples to my left said, "You can't do that. It's illegal, yada, yada." And right next to me, some big butch gay guy just came over and looked over at him, and he pulled out like a 12-inch Havana cigar and just torched it up and blew it right at him. And that told them to shut up. So, after the end of the parade, I may have to tell several stories about this because I'm one of the real, because I told it in my first show in September of '98 when I returned to Austin on Austin Access Television, where I did my science work, etc. I told them how much everything was just totally silenced and and swept and cleaned up and totally covered up by the media in San Francisco. So let me get on with it. Later on, then the crowd in the city center, if you know San Francisco, look it up on Google Maps and stuff like that. There was Carlos Santana, who I knew personally and stuff like that. Actually, I should mention that, because I'm creeping up on 10 minutes, I had already could tell that they were not permitting photography of any type. If I pulled out that big fucking VHS camera and started, I had fucking 8 hours of film with me minimum. And I already went back to public storage, was only like 2 blocks away, because I decided a lot of this was all planned out because that's right next to City Hall, the Willie Brown, the people I want to, anyway. And I already stored my camera, and I just decided, what the fuck, to just walk through the crowds and smoke a few joints. See, in the past, this is what I was telling the Yankees, is that San Francisco was noted well until like the mid-'70s and stuff like that as being a city of tall people. But the waves of, as it became a gay mecca, the waves of homosexuals, especially French, Hispanic, even the Chinese who were coming in, were just, it brought down the height. And when you walk into a crowd and you're at least a head that's 10 inches when you're close to a foot and a half taller than everybody, you get to see a lot more action. And this is where the clones come in. This is all about the clones that I saw. You people that think that we can't clone a human being accurately, or somebody can, you're full of shit. I'll get right down to it. I'd already gone over in that one booth, in a turquoise pipe, I'd already smoked pot with Dennis Perone, who's a child molesting homosexual. I'm being polite here now, Dennis. I've called you far worse. I've been around a little bit and stuff like that, but when I got there, because I'm this much taller to that much taller than everybody else in the crowd. They're all humping, snorting blow, and fucking smoking crack and humping and stuff like that, and crapping, pissing all over the place. And, they're off in the distance, there's Carlos Santana with the only allowed camera on him. And then I began to notice them. First 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, or was it 7 and 8? These tall, white males, 6'10". Actually, I would have been 6'10" if I wasn't starved by the damn Lewises at one point. It's a whole nother story. They begin kind of appearing, and like me, they have those long strides. They can walk 7 miles an hour. And the only way I could separate them, because they were totally identical to the millimeter, everything. Hair, same color. Blonde is kind of a medium blonde. Actually, I'm considered a dark blonde, except for these little brunette hairs here. They had really the same kind of tailoring on the shirts, but different colors and styles. I think 2 of them were plaid, and there was like at least 4 others of different colors. And the slacks were pretty close and stuff like that. Same tailor. You have to when you're that tall. And the one thing is they all wore the same identical, the same size boots that I wore when I was young, 16, but they weren't triple E's. They were just 16Es. And it really spooked me. I'd never seen, because, let me make this point because I'm creeping up on 14 minutes. A woman can have sextuplets, 6 identical children, but they're going to be all stunted and dwarfed because of her womb, etc. Because height is not genetic, it's almost purely nutritional. And they're in San Francisco, and during the gay pride party and stuff like that, I spotted at least 6 perfectly cloned human beings, handsome, Aryan looking, no doubt about it, and stuff like that. And nobody else really seemed to notice it because they're San Franciscans. These people weren't from there. They were there to observe just like me. I'm going to end it here now at 15 minutes so I can upload this. I saw 6 clones in 1998, summer of 1998 in San Francisco.